the dollar's golden age, and the invisible debt that came with it. For most of the 20th century, the U.S. dollar did not merely function as money. It functioned as power. After World War II, the United States emerged not just victorious, but economically untouched. Europe lay in ruins. Japan's industrial capacity was shattered. Britain, once the financial heart of the world, was drowning in debt. America held something no other nation possessed in 1945, nearly 70% of the world's gold reserves, an intact industrial base, military dominance across two oceans. The dollar did not replace gold because it was superior. It replaced gold because it was backed by American dominance. Bretton Woods in practice, 1945 to 1960. Under the Bretton Woods system, the world accepted a new reality. Gold would remain the ultimate reserve, but only governments could exchange dollars for gold. Ordinary people were locked out. For the average citizen, money had already become abstract. At $35 per ounce, gold was officially stable. In reality, the system was fragile. As long as the U.S. behaved with discipline, the illusion held, the privilege no empire ever resisted. The French economist Jacques Rueff warned in the 1960s that the U.S. enjoyed an exorbitant privilege. America could import real goods, export paper dollars, and settle deficits by printing. No previous empire had possessed this ability. And like every empire before it, America eventually used it. Vietnam, welfare, and the quiet explosion of debt, 1960 to 1971. By the early 1960s, U.S. spending began accelerating. The Vietnam War, the Great Society social programs, expanding global military presence. Gold reserves did not keep pace. Foreign governments noticed. By 1965, France, under President Charles de Gaulle, openly challenged the system and demanded gold instead of dollars. Other nations followed quietly. America faced a choice: reduce spending and preserve gold backing, or protect power and abandon discipline. On August 15, 1971, discipline lost. Nixon shock. Fiat becomes permanent. When President Nixon closed the gold window, the world entered an unprecedented era. For the first time in history, money was no longer tied to anything physical. Value existed purely by decree. Debt became limitless. This was not presented as a revolution. It was presented as temporary. It never was. Petrodollars. How oil replaced gold, 1973. After losing gold backing, the dollar needed a new anchor. That anchor became oil. In 1973 to 1974, the U.S. reached an agreement with Saudi Arabia. Oil would be priced exclusively in dollars. Surplus dollars would be recycled into U.S. debt. The U.S. would provide military protection. Thus was born the petrodollar system. Gold was no longer necessary. Energy enforced demand. Every country needed oil. Every country needed dollars. The illusion of prosperity, 1980 to 2000. For 2 decades, the system appeared flawless. Inflation cooled after the 1980s. Global trade expanded. Financial markets boomed. But beneath the surface, something changed. Money no longer represented saved labor. It represented future promises. Debt replaced productivity as the engine of growth. 2008, the moment the mask slipped. The global financial crisis of 2008 exposed the truth. Trillions of dollars were created overnight. Banks were rescued. Debts were socialized. Nothing collapsed. And that frightened economists more than a collapse would have. If unlimited money could be created without consequence, what exactly was money? The silent shift in trust. After 2008, central banks became permanent market participants. Interest rates fell toward zero. Savers were punished. Asset prices soared. Gold quietly began rising again, not because it was promoted, but because it did not require belief. The question grows louder. By the end of the 2010s, a generation had grown up knowing only digital balances, expanding debt, permanent intervention, And a question once whispered began to harden. If governments can create unlimited money, why does it feel like everything is becoming more expensive? The answer would not come from governments. It would come from outside the system, not from paper, not from oil, but from code. Bitcoin when trust failed and mathematics took control. Bitcoin was not born in a university. It was not designed by a government. It did not emerge from Wall Street. Bitcoin was born from distrust. In October 2008, as global financial institutions collapsed and governments rushed to rescue the very banks that caused the crisis, an anonymous figure or group using the name Satoshi Nakamoto published a 9-page document titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The timing was not accidental. The crisis that changed everything, 2008. In September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed. Within weeks, global credit markets froze. Trillions of dollars were promised to banks. Ordinary citizens lost jobs, homes, and savings. The system had failed, but it was saved not by accountability, by money creation. Central banks proved something unprecedented. Money could be created in unlimited quantities without immediate collapse. This revelation planted a dangerous idea. If money could be created from nothing, then what exactly had people been working for their entire lives? The Bitcoin White Paper, a direct rebuttal. Bitcoin's white paper proposed a radical alternative. No central authority, no bank, no government, no permission required. Instead of trust, Bitcoin relied on cryptography, mathematics, open verification. The system was simple in concept but revolutionary in implication. January 3rd, 2009, the Genesis block. On January 3rd, 2009, Bitcoin's first block, known as the Genesis block, was mined. Embedded in its code was a message. The Time 03/Jan/2009 Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. This was not decoration. It was a declaration. Bitcoin was not just software. It was commentary. Scarcity reimagined. Digital gold. Bitcoin introduced something no digital system had ever achieved. Absolute scarcity. Maximum supply. 21 million coins. No authority could change this. Inflation was mathematically capped. Gold was scarce because nature limited it. Bitcoin was scarce because code enforced it. For the first time in history, scarcity existed without physical form. Early skepticism and silent adoption, 2009 to 2013. In its early years, Bitcoin was dismissed as a toy for programmers, a tool for criminals, a failed experiment. In 2010, one Bitcoin was worth less than a cent. That same year, the first known Bitcoin transaction for goods occurred. 10,000 BTC were exchanged for 2 pizzas. At the time, it seemed insignificant. In hindsight, it became legendary. The first crashes and the first survivors, 2011 to 2017. Bitcoin experienced extreme volatility. 2011 crash. 2013 surge and collapse. 2017 speculative mania. Each crash was declared its death. And yet Bitcoin survived. No CEO resigned. No bailout occurred. No central bank intervened. The system corrected itself. Why? Governments could not ignore it. By the late 2010s, governments began to notice something unsettling. Bitcoin could cross borders instantly, could not be inflated, could not be censored easily. It challenged the monopoly of money creation. Regulators responded with warnings, restrictions, taxation, but the code remained unchanged. COVID-19 and the monetary flood 2020. In 2020, during the COVID-19 crisis, governments printed more money in months than in decades. Debt levels exploded. Asset prices detached from reality. Bitcoin reacted differently. Its supply schedule did not change. Its issuance did not accelerate. Its rules remained intact. For the first time, the contrast was visible. Institutional entry, a turning point, 2020 to 2021. When public companies and institutions began allocating capital to Bitcoin, the narrative shifted. Bitcoin was no longer only rebellion. It became insurance, not against market crashes, but against monetary dilution. The question Bitcoin forced the world to ask. Bitcoin did not promise stability. It promised honesty. It did not eliminate risk. It revealed it, and it forced a question no fiat system wanted asked. If trust in governments is optional, why must money depend on it? The limitations Bitcoin could not escape. Yet, Bitcoin was not perfect. Extreme volatility, dependence on electricity and networks, regulatory pressure, public misunderstanding, and something else remained unresolved. Bitcoin was digital. Gold and silver were physical. One lived in code, the other in reality. The tension before the final act. As the 2020s unfolded, the world faced a silent divide. Fiat offered convenience and control. Bitcoin offered scarcity and resistance. Gold and silver offered permanence. Three forms of value. Three philosophies of trust. But history never keeps three kings for long. One always returns.